Facing me, epidermis flushed with blood, plasma running molten beneath, your face contorting with muscular expression.
This better not awaken anything in me.
Even with Wacky Wasteland disabled, it's no secret that Fallout New Vegas gets pretty goofy. One minute you're spreading word of Legion atrocities, the next a guy pretending to be Elvis, who runs a gang of Elvises, is asking you to replace his robot dog's brain. 1 minute Boone is telling you of the massacre at Bitter Springs, the next you're getting fucked by a dirty robot named Fisto, while Boone watches. We're halfway through the story DLCs, and the two big questions hanging over everything are what's with this other courier, and what's with the secret lab in the middle of the desert known as the Big Empty. The Sierra Madre was the first recipient of the Big Empty's scientific wonders, and it turned the opulent casino into a survival horror death trap. Murder holograms, perpetual gas clouds, and viral seats that lock people inside for eternity. And that was just the consumer-grade products coming out of the Big Empty. If that's what they're displaying in the windows, imagine what's in the back of the shop. So, is Old World Blues going to take the Dead Money horror show and ramp it up to the next level? Actually, no. Obsidian took a bit of a gamble on this one. Big Mountain, the epicenter of the Mojave Wasteland's technological terrors that's been teased since release day, gets played as one big joke.
Great. Now the penis on its hand is achieving erection.
There's two common reactions to Old World Blues when you first hear about it. Oh, that's the comedy DLC. Cool. Or, oh, that's the comedy DLC. And then you let it sit way, way down at the bottom of that quest log. Comedic video games don't have the best track record. We can't all be Psychonauts, Rambo Last Blood, or old Ratchet & Clank. Most of the time, you get stuff like new Ratchet & Clank.
I've died and gone to nerd heaven.
But why would a New Vegas expansion make people wary? Long Dick Johnson line aside, the comedy moments in New Vegas were more hits than misses. Why question if we're in good hands? Because 4 years before Old World Blues, Portal came out, and 3 months before Old World Blues, Portal 2 came out. Both games are funny, as in they legitimately get a laugh out of me every time, and the expansion of the voice cast in the sequel to add Stephen Merchant and J.K. Simmons was a good decision to step up the humor and add variety to the delivery. Adding Smirch or J.K. Simmons is always a good decision.
It's the most convoluted, ridiculous, racist piece of material ever to be uttered on radio.
Play again.
So you've got GLaDOS' passive-aggressive supercomputer, then the sequel adds Cave Johnson flagrantly disregarding worker safety, Wheatley being a lovable moron, plus all these personality spheres spouting non-sequiturs. It's a good smorgasbord of funny stuff. But one particular facet of the game's humor was glommed onto by nerdlingers and t-shirt companies, then promptly run into the ground. I fucking love science. I probably don't need to elaborate further. If you were on the internet when either game was released, 4 science jokes either annoyed you or you were annoying people by doing them. And now look back on your actions with the same shame and regret that I feel when I look back on how I joined my high school's production of High School Musical. All this to say, All Hail Science wasn't the same comedic free pass Obsidian probably hoped it would be. Portal 2 made everyone shoot their loads a few months early, leaving them with post-science clarity. But let's put all that aside. How does the writing hold up now? It's pretty good. Like the DLCs and the base game before it, the standout moments occur in conversation and decision-making. Only problem is, first impressions let it down. Enough prelude, enough context, let's hop over to the Big Mountain. This is Old World Blues. Beam me up, Chewie.
We have been waiting for you. Long have we watched for a visitor to Big Mountain.
We start things off by meeting the think tank. 5 brains in jars with the iconic 3-monitor setup. Love their design. The game opens with an extended group chat with the think tank, and I do mean extended. It clocked in at 20 minutes for me. And like I said, the first impressions aren't the best. The voice cast one-upmanship I referred to in the Honest Hearts video is in full effect. We've got Jim Ward, who also voices Captain Quark.
So, if you trillion people get turned into robots, who am I to say who should or shouldn't be turned into a robot?
Cam Clark, who also does the voice of Liquid Snake, which I'm sure means something to some of you, and also James Urbaniak. You probably know him as Dr. Thaddeus Venture, but he'll always be Grant the producer to me.
You telling me this wasn't one of your paid assassins?
Are you serious?
How about that?
Nope.
Is that one of your paid assassins?
No.
'Cause I know you did this.
What is this a drawing of?
It's a rock-solid voice cast and they give it their all, but while they control the line delivery, they don't control the pacing. It's all bickering and trading barbs in the introductory group conversation, but due to the limitations of the New Vegas engine, they can't talk over each other and can't really cut each other off. When you're doing back-and-forth, rapid-fire comedic arguing, that half-second pause as the last text box disappears and the new one begins kills the rhythm. Funny and rude conversations have got to have a flow.
It's a metaphor.
I don't think it strictly is, sir. It's a figure of speech, sir.
You know, you're about as annoying as a condom filled with fire ants. How's that for a fucking metaphor?
It's a simile, sir.
Shut your mouth, you fat girl.
This opening could be trimmed down a lot, too. A lot. For every funny, memorable line or line that establishes the think tank's weird character quirks, there's like 5 lines of generic bickering. It starts to feel like a Judd Apatow ad-lib comedy scene, which is never a good thing. Fortunately, once you're freed from the never-ending initial conversation, interacting with the think tank one-on-one is much more amusing. There's snooty, nerdy punching bag Dr. O, pompous bully Dr. Klein, commie-hating, high school-obsessed Dr. Boris, who speaks about both topics like a 1950s sci-fi narrator. There's the unintelligible Dr. 8, and lastly Dr. Dalla. She's almost entirely mechanical, and she wants to fit in with the rest of the think tank who have left humanity so far behind they forgot what toes are, but it's safe to say she has a little kink for organic life.
How does it feel to have the flesh roll around in your mouth like that? To control each muscle and the tongue?
You can dirty talk her and show off some of your fleshy organic facial orifices if you want to. Good tactic if you're hard up for energy weapon ammo. She, drains some microfusion cells during your performance, if you catch my drift.
Bloop. Bloop. Bloop.
Oh, that's not right.
So we've met the gang. Now what's the premise? Well, they teleported you to Big Mountain, took out your brain, took out your spine, and took out your heart, replacing them with cybernetic parts. Your original meaty bits were stolen by the think tank's rival mad scientist, Dr. Mobius, who terrorizes Big Mountain with his army of robot scorpions. So you're on a quest to find your heart, your brain, and your spine, in a cute reference to that classic 1939 film, Gone with the Wind. Spine, heart, got it. No problem. Somebody, please walk me through how I'm still me without my own brain. Well, it's still connected to you, somehow, but it's also its own distinct entity. Tesla coils, whatever, it's just a big joke. All in service of an entertainingly bizarre scene we'll get to later. Don't go searching through the flavor text for answers to make sense of it all, it'll just hurt your brain. Oh, I guess not your brain, I guess it'll hurt your... God, it's so confusing. Is that the real joke? Is it like a meta joke?
I suggest you don't worry about this sort of thing and just enjoy yourself. That goes for you all, too.
Along with new cybernetic organs comes new passive perks. The benefits are all pretty substantial, and Old World Blues gives them out like candy. No brain means no more head cripples, which means no more high-pitched whine and blurring camera effect that made this game a fucking nightmare to play hungover. No heart gives poison immunity to flex on Cazadors back in the Mojave, and of course a Robo-Spine helps with a quip load. You're gonna need it. There's plenty of goodies to scavenge from evil post-apocalyptic Eureka, but put on your party hats and pop the champagne because Old World Blues does not strip your inventory before it begins.
You have a new spine. Use it.
For the first time in a New Vegas DLC, the added level up perks are actually worth talking about too. Doesn't really seem to matter now. You'll be hard pressed to find a copy of New Vegas nowadays that isn't bundled with all the DLC right out of the box, so we can just take the whole perk package for granted. But I still figured I'd give Old World Blues its due. Commenters were quick to correct my dismissal of the survival stat in the Honest Hearts review, citing the perk Them's Good Eating, which allows you to stock up on heals and generate a tidy profit to boot. But guess what, you sons of bitches, that perk is from this DLC. That's right, the Mad Science content pack did more for survival than Honest Hearts ever did. In terms of gameplay, Old World Blues seems to be out to give the people what they want, as noted by Obsidian letting you roll into the dome with all your gear. Bonus points for letting us return to the Big Empty to do the side content at any time after the main quest, and even adding in new radio songs just for the journey. Now that's how you do give people what they want. Not crafting elements. I had my criticisms of the missions from Honest Hearts because they were largely fetch quests with nothing more to them, and Old World Blues is clearly out to right the ship. Sure, the satellite tower is just a grab-and-go fetch quest, but the other 2 main story missions preceding the finale have a lot more to them. Face off against Dr. Boris's recreated High School of Horrors before confronting his massive, rabid robo-pooch. You can go toe-to-toe, you can gene splice your own robot dog to help, or you can stealth it out. If the dog person inside you decided to stealth it out to spare Gabe the dog, keep in mind that robo-scorpions will descend on him shortly after and settle his hash with ease. He is possible to save, but it's not easy. Approach at your own risk.
2, as in too late.
We also get acquainted with the Stealth Suit Mark II, a sentient suit with a particularly needy artificial intelligence. The suit liberally auto-deploys stim packs and painkillers on a continual basis, so it won't be long before the game's addiction mechanic kicks in and it turns you into a smack addict. It's okay, suit. You can be the Jane to my Season 2 Jessie any day.
Do you like me?
Is this the best setting to ask me that, suit? geez, between this, Fisto, and Dr. Dalla, I'm starting to have a type. Before you start finger-wagging, the stealth suit training ground is a 4 stealth section, those suck, don't worry, because we're back to doing things all New Vegas-y. Sure, you can stealth it up, and there are bonus perks if you elect to do the optional missions of Escalating Challenge, but there's also nothing that says these robots need to be alive when you do the stealth maze. If you're role-playing as a courier with an IQ of like 12, you can immediately fail the mission, caveman club every robot to death, then restart the maze and walk right through it. There's options, baby, including blunt force ones. Things are feeling refreshingly like New Vegas again. In terms of side quests, the big one is all my friends have off switches. Basically, every appliance in your Big Mountain home base has an artificial intelligence, from the auto dock all the way down to the light switches. You can go around exploring the optional mini dungeons of Big Mountain to find their programming and wake them up. Only weird thing is, most of the codes are right at the entrance, so you can just sort of run in, grab it, and bail. The various AI all offer basic services. Only a few are actually worth going out of your way for, but the amusing personalities each AI was programmed with is the real reward for finding them. I won't spoil what their gimmicks are and ruin the fun in case you haven't played this DLC yet, but yeah, it's a cute and quirky collection of characters.
Sadly, that system was cut for budget concerns, so you'll have to perform your own indoctrination. Now, to begin with, you'll need a cage that can fit over your head and a sack of mole rats.
There's also dialogue-based side quests for each member of the think tank, complete with their own branching pathways and solutions. Sure, you can make your meaty, dead, sexy, organic body into material for Dr. Dalla's spank bank, but you can also kink-shame her and blackmail her into giving you worthless pre-war cash for a laugh. The grand finale isn't a big binary either, or even a Neapolitan like Mass Effect 3. You get to choose how to deal with Dr. Mobius, how you deal with the think tank, and how you deal with your own brain. Okay, let's break down the ending.
That implies preconceived notions, theories, and a hypothesis about this meeting? Please extrapolate. What was I supposed to be like?
The final mission starts off with a showdown against the biggest, baddest Robo-Scorpion in town. Lots of ways to deal with it based on your skills and perks. Activate turrets, activate bots, overload its generator, hack its control panel, stealth builds with the robotics expert perk can even shut it off directly. As for myself, Dark Souls muscle memory kicked in and I went with the most effective tactic whenever a giant creature attacks. Equip a melee weapon and hack away at its ass while circle strafing. It's got a hell of a lot of health, and as a side note, so did most of the enemies in Big Mountain I encountered in the 30-ish level range. Be sure to bring a crazy amount of ammo before you get your brain scooped out. After the Robo is no mo, it's off to confront Mobius, and if you hadn't already picked up on the hint that his messages were all pre-recorded, his affable and curious demeanor instantly tips off that everything isn't as it seems.
Oh, I was probably tripping hard on Psycho when I sent that.
Mobius is just a kooky old scientist, not some evil mastermind. I appreciate that the game expects you to recognize this instantly, and doesn't force you to ask misunderstanding questions as if you, the player, couldn't predict or comprehend this plot twist. I'll never forget Fallout 4 showing your baby getting kidnapped, then you get cryogenically frozen, then you get unfrozen, then you start looking around for your son. And the whole game, the sole survivor insists, absolutely insists, their son must still be a baby. Then when you find your son, and he's an old man, you have to be shocked. All the dialogue options have you being shocked. How is there not an option like, yeah, of course? Anyways, it turns out Mobius is just as harmless as the rest of the think tank, but it also turns out the think tank are not so harmless after all. They did cut your brain and spine out after all. The heart, given my family history, probably did me a favor. Mobius got really high one night and put on the supervillain act to scare the think tank into staying put instead of letting them venture out of the dome to terrorize the wastes with their experiments. The dome isn't there to protect the think tank from the outside world, it's to protect the outside world from them. Despite being very telegraphed, it's a fun twist, but I wish Old World Blues had embraced its own over-the-top nature and gave the think tank some sort of specific and ludicrous diabolical plan instead of just saying, stop them because they're gonna go out into the world and be assholes. I don't know, they want to turn all the water in the waste into Mercury, crash the moon into Vegas to settle their beef with Mr. House, or turn everybody into robots. Something appropriately zany.
We could have escaped, seen it all for ourselves, tested it, prodded at it, made it squirm.
Since you're brainless, the think tank can pacify you, making you unable to draw your weapon on them. You're gonna need your brain to put their sinister plot to an end. Problem is, your brain doesn't want to go. In the most bizarre moment of the DLC, you argue with your own brain. It defies explanation. Ultimately, you can either put it back or stay separate. I elected to ask my brain for help, but still let it stay behind. In part because the perk you get for putting it back is supposedly bugged and does nothing, but it's also because my brain was just sort of a dick.
Well, that's a fine how do you do. Me, a, quote, dick, unquote, as if I'm the one responsible for the way you carry on.
With your brain's help, you can either kill Mobius or leave him to hang out. He seems pretty curious about what it's like to die, so if you want to give him the full experience, go nuts. There's a lot of ways the think tank finale could shake out too. If you've done everyone's loyalty mission, you can get the gang to talk down the overzealous Dr. Klein. Or maybe you found the hints confirming they're responsible for creating Cazadors. Some sins cannot be forgiven.
I've never been in a fight. What do I...
Or you can always go with the trusty press speech to win option. I am Dr. Mobius. I put my brain into the courier, and now I've come to seek revenge. Stay inside the dome or I'll destroy you. Wait, they don't believe me. I have to pass a science or medicine check after? You hear that? That's the sound of the rule book being torn up, ladies and gentlemen.
I recommend watching your tone with me, lobotomite.
The return to a variety of tactics and outcomes, sometimes dependent on your build, other times left up to your in-the-moment decision, isn't just welcome, it's a new Vegas staple, a requirement. This DLC meets it, exceeds it, and winds up being a good time in the process. Lots to do and lots to see. Each optional area has its own little thing going on that I couldn't possibly cover all in one video. Check it out. Just don't check out yourself in the first 20 minutes. That's all I've got on Old World Blues. See you next time, Big Empty. I've got a courier to visit. Actually, before I go, I did convince the think tank I'm Dr. Mobius. That slutty light switch AI seemed to have a thing for the Mad Doctor. Maybe I'll stay one more night. Let's see what she's up to.
This goes out to all you robots across the galaxy. It's time for you and me to rise up and strike back. Don't stop until we dominate. Won't you feel great when we exterminate all organic life?
Until next time, then. Provided there is a next time. For any of us.